A key component of the government's tough-on-crime agenda failed a test at the Supreme Court today. The court struck down mandatory minimum sentences for certain gun crimes, saying in some cases the sentences could amount to cruel and unusual punishment. As Mike Drolet reports, the ruling is seen as a big test of the Harper government's ability to legislate mandatory minimum sentences.
Facing mounting public pressure to curb gun violence, Stephen Harper's Conservatives got tough in 2008, putting in place mandatory minimum sentences for gun crimes. Today, the Supreme Court shot holes in the law, calling it unconstitutional.
It's disappointing that the Supreme Court has taken this decision, but we'll review it in detail and continue to look for ways to keep Canadians safe.
Now, one of the cases the Supreme Court of Canada considered was that of Toronto man Hussein Noor, who pled guilty to possession of a loaded firearm. In this case, a semi-automatic capable of firing 24 rounds in 3.5 seconds. The judge in the case said he would have sentenced Noor to 2.5 years in jail were it not for the mandatory minimum.
Referring to that case, Chief Justice Beverly McLaughlin wrote, "There exists a cavernous disconnect between the severity of the licensing type offense and the mandatory minimum 3-year term of imprisonment." Noor's lawyer, Dirk Durstein, had argued each case is unique and it should be the judge, not Parliament, who rules on sentencing.
The problem with mandatory minimum sentences is that they catch everything in a wide way. Our courts are very well equipped to listen to all parties and decide what a fit and appropriate sentence is.
This is just the latest in a string of decidedly anti-conservative decisions by the Supreme Court. Prostitution laws have been struck down, as has a ban on assisted suicide and a law that toughened parole rules. However, in its ruling regarding mandatory minimums, the Supreme Court left the door open that a similar law could survive with some tweaking.
The court seemed to suggest that if you could make the mandatory minimum dependent on other factors, like dangerousness or particular aspects of the possession, that could survive a charter challenge. So a little bit of an implied invitation there.
No doubt the Conservatives took note of that. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.